Try to imagine the torment of two Jewish children, 7 years old, in Poland as the Nazis invaded in 1939. Try to imagine the inconceivable, really. Their family was separated, ending up in different concentration camps in Poland and Germany. They saw death and horrors all around them, and they feared their loved ones were killed as well. But somehow, Phillip Maisel survived. And after the war, he found his twin sister, Bella, alive too. They both emigrated to Australia. They each married, had families of their own, had wonderful lives. And last week, they turned 100 years old. I had the pleasure of speaking with Phillip earlier, and I asked him about how strong his memories were about the wonderful and horrible things he's seen.
Oh, look, this is a very, very long story. Actually, a miracle that I'm still here, a miracle that I reached 100 years age, and my sister is still alive, and I can communicate with her, and I can participate in a normal way in the life with other people.
When you think back to the Second World War and the Holocaust and the horrors that unfolded around you, firstly, you lost your parents and other family members. Did you ever think you would see your sister again?
Never. I hoped, but the hope was very faint. You know, I couldn't believe that I ever will meet her. I was liberated in Germany after the Holocaust in a little town, Banningen. And I was writing letters to Poland to find out what happened to my family during the Holocaust. Unfortunately, I didn't get any answers to my letters. But one Sunday, when I was walking in the street, a Jewish fellow approached me and asked me in Jewish if are there any women living in the district where I live. He said to me, "You are speaking with a strange Jewish accent. I know another girl who lives in the American zone, and she speaks with the same language." And suddenly I felt it must be my sister. So, because I was working for UNRWA, I had a motorbike. I went about 150 kilometers to a town, Landsberg am Lech, which is not far from Munich in Germany, and met my sister there.
It's just so wonderful that you found her after all that you'd been through. And of course, you stayed together. Your sister accompanied you when you emigrated to Australia, and you're still in touch, and you've both made 100.
Yes, actually, I stayed about 2 weeks in the camp looking for news about my father, who unfortunately was killed by the Germans. And I returned to Balingen with my sister, and we migrated to Australia. There was a danger of the Third World War breaking up at the moment, at this stage. My uncle invited me to come to Australia, and in 1949, January 49, I arrived to Australia, migrated from France, from Marseille by a boat, and traveled about 5 weeks in an army boat. The migrants were the cargo on the boat. The conditions were not very good, but the final destination was Australia, which was a really very lucky country to live in.
Well, you and your sister have had wonderful lives in Australia, productive lives, and you've both made it to 100. Does that give you a special sense of victory over the Nazis?
Actually, the fact that I'm still alive and enjoy the Joe is alive, and the Nazis perish, yeah, it gives me a certain satisfaction.
It certainly does, but you've done a lot of work too to keep the memories of the Holocaust alive by interviewing survivors. Tell me, are those memories still there, clear with you? Do you remember the horrors and you want the world to remember them too?
Actually, when I retired, I started to work in Jewish Holocaust Center, Melbourne, collecting testimonies. I was 70-year-old, and I felt that it has to be done as soon as possible because people were simply dying at this age. And this preserves actually the truth about the Holocaust. Everybody sees the Holocaust different, but there's a certain basic truth there that if you teach somebody to hide, later you have to face terrible consequences. And the Holocaust could be a lesson for humanity, never to spread hate and never teach children to hate other people.
Phillip, congratulations again to you and Bella on making 100 years old, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to pass the message.
Yeah, Phillip Maisel there. His sister Bella couldn't join us. What a wonderful life story. Of course, apologies for the mistake in the intro there. They would have been teenagers, of course, when the war broke out, 17-year-olds experiencing all of that horror, losing family members, yet having long and productive lives in Australia. Thanks so much to Phillip for joining us.